Leonid served for about 6 months. He stands on the side of the road and waves his wand. The young lieutenant had already been working in the traffic police for 6 months. During the entire period of his difficult service, he did not solve a single crime. And my colleagues teased me, saying that you don't have a professional sense of smell. Stops the wrong cars, while other colleagues were given bonuses and commendations for their detection rates. The guy had no luck, although he diligently developed his sense of smell, mainly by watching detective films about his colleagues. And then, as if ordered, a hearse arrives. Leonid just recently saw the film, and instead of a dead man, drugs were transported there. The young lieutenant decided that this was his chance to solve a similar crime. When the hearse stopped, a police officer demanded that the car be opened for inspection. The driver reluctantly got out and opened the door. There was a closed coffin in the cabin. The man became wary and nervously asked, "Why does a peace officer need the corpse of a lonely alcoholic?" And he began to be indignant that for the first time in his life, he was stopped to inspect such sad contents of the interior of his car. Leonid said that there was a tip that prohibited goods were being transported in one of the hearses, so everyone was being checked. The driver was clearly nervous. He had a gangster appearance, with tattoos on his fingers. The policeman found this strange. He had already imagined a coffin filled with prohibited cargo, but when, at a repeated request, this time with the use of a weapon, the driver moved the lid, his disappointment knew no bounds. There was a little old woman lying there. In order not to look at all ridiculous in the eyes of the hearse driver, he began to ask which cemetery the deceased would be taken to and why she died. Leonid again hinted that a hearse was wanted in the city, but did not say why. He only said that this was classified information. The driver became agitated again and confused about what he had said a little earlier. He said that the grandmother died of a heart attack. But Leonid remembered that initially, the man was talking about an alcoholic. The policeman glanced sideways at the grandmother's body. She didn't look like a drinker at all. He began to look closely. The old woman was casually dressed, as if her heart had seized while she was watching TV. If this is a lonely old woman, then it may well be that there is no one to take care of her. Then the man said that she had many relatives. This alerted the guy. A lonely alcoholic suddenly turns into an old woman with a heart problem and even with a bunch of relatives. The policeman put his hand on the gun and began to search the body. Something was definitely wrong here, he decided, lost his vigilance for a second, and immediately received a crushing blow to the head. Leonid still managed to meet a real criminal on the road, but his excitement played a cruel joke on him. He thought when, after some time, he woke up in a coffin. Having come to his senses, he realized with horror that he was lying next to his dead grandmother. The guy started to panic. He didn't know what he was more afraid of, the corpse lying next to him, or the fact that he was in a closed coffin. It was impossible to get rid of both troubles instantly. The coffin was small, and Grandma was lying very close to it. Then he realized that this was not even the worst thing. They were driving along a dirt road, most likely in a cemetery. Leonid remembered the gun, but the driver was not a fool. He took it. The policeman began to hit the lid of the coffin, although it was cheap. He couldn't easily break it. He just knocked off his knuckles. Meanwhile, it was becoming more and more stuffy. It seemed that oxygen was running out. There is not enough air here for one, and even more so for two, Leonid thought bitterly. Although the grandmother does not participate in this process. However, something urgently needed to be done. He felt for his phone in his pocket, but there was no network. Without being too desperate, he began to feel the old woman. But instead of something useful for breaking out boards, he felt his grandmother's pulse. The task became more complicated. In addition to saving himself, we still need to save the elderly man. It looks like the old lady was drugged with something. They both need to get out of here somehow. Then the car stopped. The policeman froze. Could they really hear him? But everything turned out to be much more prosaic. They pulled the coffin out of the car, practically threw it into a hole, and began to cover it with earth. Leonid began screaming with anger and resentment that he would find the criminal and put him behind bars. But the criminal did not care at all. He did not react in any way to the policeman's promises. The young man listened to the earth falling from above, and at the same time, he realized that his grandmother's breathing was becoming more and more distinct. It would be better if she didn't come to her senses. Otherwise, how would he explain all this to her? Suddenly there was a sound of a strong blow, and there was silence. Leonid turned on the phone and shined it on his grandmother. She suddenly opened her eyes, screamed, and began to beat the young man. There was noise again upstairs. This time the earth did not fall from above, but rather it was removed. If only he knew how it would all end.